Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Fran, and today I would like to talk about virtual reality and the subconscious mind, and how our subconscious mind is the link between our conscious mind and a higher consciousness. Consciousness at the core is information, and we are made of information. Even our physical reality, our bodies, a table, a rock, are nothing but information at the fundamental level. Information is produced in the human body by thoughts in the brain. Thoughts give rise to emotions, which cause the brain to produce certain chemicals. These chemicals are information carried by the blood to the internal organs. Now, organs are plastic. They adapt to their internal environment, in other words, to the chemicals which are released by the brain, and also indirectly to their external environment, accessed through the individual nervous system. What about DNA? DNA encodes information from our genes, which are passed on from generation to generation. But ultimately, genes are switched on by specific triggers in the environment. In other words, our fate is not sealed at birth and established by our genes. It's decided by the environment in which the genes live. And the environment is always mediated or interpreted by our nervous system. The nervous system is operated by the subconscious mind. So ultimately, the programming of our subconscious mind is what seals our fate. Developmental biologist and author Bruce Lipton claims that beliefs, rather than DNA, control human biology. While he was studying stem cells, he found that first, stem cells would split and replicate quite quickly if placed in the right environment. Then he took cells which had replicated from the same original stem cell and placed them in different quote-unquote environments or petri dishes. And he found that the same cell would become bone, muscle, or fat according to the environment in which it had been placed. In other words, the environment carried information that the cell would copy and replicate. Dr. Bruce Lipton at that point said that he had to give up the tenure he had in university, as he could no longer teach his medical students that DNA established our fate. What Dr. Bruce Lipton also found was that the cell membrane was exactly, now take a moment to take this in, the cell membrane was exactly like a computer chip, which with receptors in place of gates. So it becomes quite obvious then that even from a biological standpoint, we live in some sort of virtual reality. The program is carried out by our cells. Now, the following is the image that emerges by bringing together quantum physics, information theory, and even, to a certain extent, Eastern spirituality. Information from a universal computer is downloaded onto individual computers via the subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is the gateway to a higher form of consciousness, what Carl Jung referred to as the collective unconscious. Our thoughts spill out onto the reality that we experience and also help shape that same reality. According to Dr. Bruce Lipton, proof that thoughts are not contained within the individual's head lies in the fact that magnetic resonance imaging detects the strength of the magnetic field around the scalp. In other words, the sensor is outside the head at a distance. Therefore, the magnetic field created by electrical signals in the brain projects outside the body of the individual. As thoughts are electrical signals, as measured by EEG, they affect this magnetic field. And as the field has no physical boundary, then our individual consciousness obviously affects the collective consciousness. In other words, the universal computer. Now, remember that the computer is just a metaphor for an entity which processes information. The information goes both ways, from the individual individual computer towards the universal computer through personal experience of the different environments, and then from the universal computer back to the individual computer via the subconscious mind, which is always mediated by the individual's nervous system. This explains otherwise mysterious quantum leaps in science achieved by accessing the subconscious. For instance, how Einstein achieved his theory of relativity through dreams and thought experiments, which he could not arrive at using his conscious mind, maths, logic, and induction. And also, it explains the amount of knowledge that we possess about phenomena of which we have no direct experience of, such as dark energy, dark matter, black holes, imaginary numbers, and even perfect circles. So we experience life according to the program that we have received. Feedback, that information to the universal computer, inform the global program, which then will be passed on to future generations, hence expanding consciousness. In other words, we are informed and we inform the collective unconscious by the thoughts that we decide to think. But we can only ever consciously influence and inform the universal program by becoming aware of the fact that we can choose how we experience our environment. If we remain unaware of the universal program, we can only ever react to our environment in automatic mode. We can provide feedback about the environment that we are experiencing, but we cannot, or we can only marginally affect what we experience. We remain bound by our childhood programming. Yet, if we become aware of the universal computer program, we can obtain information which would otherwise be unavailable to us. And we can then use that information to select the type of environment that we will experience. When reacting unconsciously, we can only ever be slaves to that universal computer. However, when we become aware of our ability to affect our program, we can also exploit the universal computer by entering a mutual feedback loop of information, which would otherwise be inaccessible to us. This is why any creative endeavor is carried out in a state of flow, in automatic mode, as if downloading the information from some otherworldly realm of experience. Like Italian singer Vasco Rossi once wrote, songs, they write themselves, they come out with words and all. According to Bruce Lipton, our identity is not in the DNA. It's not inside the cell even. The cell is merely a receptor for information, a gateway. The cell membrane contains some keys, in inverted commas, but our identity is the signal coming from the environment, typing on the keyboard. The cell, in other words, is simply a signal carrier. We are not even in here. We're not even in our physical bodies. Our identity is not inside the cell. Our true identity is out there in the universal computer program. And that identity can never die. So you see, when we think from our limited perspective, it's hard to make sense of our experience, to make sense of this limited reality, to even find a sense of purpose. Yet, when we awaken to the fact that our very observation contributes to the expansion of the global consciousness, when we realize that the way in which we experience the world around us informs the whole and shapes the universal knowledge, when we remember who we truly are, and that we are here to play a virtual reality game, to learn, to grow, to expand, then life becomes meaningful and it becomes fun. So start focusing on your desires rather than on your fears. Become aware of your thoughts because they actively create your life and get reflected by others around you. Begin by noticing when your thoughts correlate with events in your life. Now, initially, the correlation will seem to be a mere coincidence, but eventually, the more aware you become of your thoughts, the more overwhelming the evidence will be that your thoughts and your physical reality are one and the same. We've always been taught that our reality affects the way we think and feel, but in actual facts, the causal relationship runs in both directions. First, our thoughts create the reality that we experience with our five senses. Then we react to the reality as if it caught us by surprise, as if we hadn't created it in the first place. There is only one way to break the vicious cycle. Stop reacting to the 3D reality as if it were real. Start treating it as the illusion, the reflection that it is. If people disrespect you, remember, they are reflecting back to you two things. One, the way in which you feel and think about yourself, and two, the way that you expect them to think and feel about you. The two things are one and the same. The way you think about yourself subconsciously, so below the level of conscious awareness, is the way others will treat you. They are simply a reflection of your subconscious mind. So don't even try to manipulate the outer environment. Don't even attempt to change people. You will only hurt yourself trying. The only change that you can implement is on the inside. You change your self-concept. You learn to love and accept every part of you. And even the most unpleasant circumstances will melt away. The screen of space has no choice but to reflect your deepest beliefs. Physical reality is made up of denser energy than the substance of our thoughts. Our physical reality is thicker than an electromagnetic field, so it will take longer to adapt to changes in our consciousness. This is why it is essential to persist in a new vision before you can actually see some physical evidence out there. It's like evolution in a way. The environment or habitat of a species can change quite quickly, yet the physical characteristics of a species will only adapt in the long term. It will take a few generations for the physical adaptation to take place. The screen of space is like looking up at the sky. Many of the stars you see now in your present may have already run out of fuel and died. Yet you still see them as they are so far away from you that their light is taking a long time to reach your eyes. Effectively, you are looking at the past state of the universe in the present moment. You see how linear time is simply another illusion. And all perception is like this, illusory and deceptive. You never really perceive reality. You simply perceive your version of reality. You perceive yourself. Or in other words, a version of reality created inside your mind. So what I'm saying is persist in your desired version of reality. Don't be fooled by the superficial appearances you see out there. Persist in your vision, which is the only real thing. Ignore all evidence to the contrary. Be delusional if you must, because in the end, it will all be projected onto the 3D screen of space. So this is it for today. If you've come this far and found this content interesting and thought-provoking, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. In any case, thank you for listening. Have a wonderful awakened day.